I'm Michael Reese.
And I'm Woods Davis.
And this is the Digital President Podcast.
We've cracked the code for generating customers online for every business model.
In fact, we wrote the book on it.
We built multiple multi-million-dollar businesses in as little as 90 days. And the one truth that we discovered is
the best business model is doing what you love and living your life by strategy.
You truly can follow your passion and create the life of your dreams,
as long as you have the right strategy.
If you're a real estate agent and you'd like to learn how you can partner with us to help you implement our strategies and systems in your business so you can make a lot more money and have a lot more time freedom, all without ever paying us a penny or giving up a percentage of your commission, go to partnershipdetails.com and schedule a call with us today. While it's fresh in your mind, go to partnershipdetails.com. Now on to the podcast.
All right, well, let's jump in, man. Are you there, Woods?
Yeah, I'm here, ready to rock.
Awesome, man. Well, so today's topic, you got myself, Michael Reese, and Woods Davis. We're here to talk to you about probably the one thing we get asked the most, and that's, we're helping an agent, and, let's say they're finding success. It is almost without fail that they want to work with the seller side, and rightfully so. So in today's podcast, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the seller side of the business. We're going to really talk about the framework. The framework, if you don't understand the framework, then you either see people having success, but you can't identify why. They just look like, oh, they're a top producer, they're doing so well. No, if they're producing listings consistently, whether they know consciously or unconsciously, they are obeying the laws of marketing, and our goal is to jump in and walk you through those. So one of the things that you have to know is there's really a couple things that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the importance of your target market, specifically the value proposition, how it relates to that, and then really diving into a marketing and sales process. This framework is, unfortunately not going to change, whether it's sellers, buyers. If you're a broker looking to build your brokerage by attracting productive agents, framework is going to be the same. So we're going to talk about the framework and the principles and then give you a few examples. Hopefully you'll find this extremely valuable. And I think all the time, Woods, when we go through the process that we use, which is called the goal process, any goal that you're trying to achieve, it always starts with mindset. So we'll talk a little bit about mindset. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good, man. I mean, that's definitely where it starts. Some people have limiting beliefs or they don't really understand at the core why it's important to especially, shift in their business over to listings. If they're working with buyers or they're having success with buyers, sometimes it's hard for them to, shift out of what they're currently doing into something that's going to be better for them. And ultimately, listings are just going to give them more leverage and give them more freedom and help them create a way better business.
Yeah, so there's a lot of benefits for listings. First of all, one of the things that I've always, and this is for the people, and this is probably a very few amount of you. Most of you want listings and don't know what to do in order to get them. But there are some people that just love buyers. And, let me explain to you this. What I recognized is when we looked at my best year in real estate, we looked at all my closings and we calculated the cash conversion cycle. In my CRM, there was a date created for each contact, meaning you could look in the CRM and it would say the date the contact was created inside the CRM. And if you looked in the CRM, we had it tied to inbound calls, all of our different lead sources. Our fastest way to generate a commission was from a sign call from a listing. So I want you to remember, listings actually have what I would consider babies. I mean, if you market a listing correctly, you should be able to produce not only the transaction from the listing, but a lot of the times that listing's a local area mover. A lot of the times people in the neighborhood are going to call. I've had many, many times where people say, I noticed that you just sold the house across the street. We're looking to sell our house. And so you have to switch your mindset because you get into this habit of feeling busy and productive. And sometimes that could be going to team meetings, that could be driving around on house tour. When you're going to go after listings, the first thing you have to do is you have to focus your time and energy and your calendar on the things we're going to talk about, meaning you have to start with the strategy. And the problem about strategy is it doesn't feel productive. In fact, I would say that when you do strategy, a lot of the times you'll find yourself into the how. So what am I going to say when they call? That's not what I'm talking about strategy. Strategy is going to start with the first step, which is going to be target market. if I'm going to go after listings, what am I going to go after? Am I going to go after expireds? Am I going to go after for sub owners? Am I going to go after probate? Am I going to create a campaign that, creates awareness around a very specific value proposition and a market specific, like neighborhood, right? And all of those things work when it comes to going after sellers, but you have to at least first identify who you're going to target.
They work and they require work. They require that front end work that's a little more strategic. It's a lot easier to be able to pretty much turn on some tried and true campaigns and generate buyer leads. Buyer leads are on the whole a lot easier to generate than a seller lead. And I think that one thing that can happen, I've just seen it personally with some of the agents that I've worked with in the past, is that you can feel really productive getting really busy with buyers too. You feel like you have success when you've got a buyer advanced into the showing stages and we're showing lots of houses, we're moving forward. But like we were talking about earlier, I mean, that you could end up showing 50 houses and it not come to a conclusion. And then you start wondering, like, man, is this thing even going to is this going to come to a close? Is this going to produce a transaction?
I think one thing that you're saying there is actually, based upon interpretation, right? So what is a buyer lead? I mean, if you define a buyer lead of somebody who's pre-approved and looking to actually buy a home in the next 30 days, that lead's not easier to generate than somebody who owns a home and is looking to put it on the market in the next 30 days. The problem is that we define a buyer lead as anybody that comes in and looks at a home and gives us their name and information. And so therefore, yes, that's no different than calling a home evaluation request a seller lead.
Right.
And the point is in order to find buyers that are actually market ready, we have qualified opportunities. A qualified opportunity on the buyer side is someone who's willing and able to buy a home, right? And I would say that when we look to at a seller's lead is they have to be the homeowner. They have to be able, legally to sell the property. And so the truth is that I would actually say that sellers leads, if there's a word here that you're saying easier is not really true. I would say that listing opportunities are more expensive.
Yeah.
Right. And so therefore buyer leads are usually more abundant because of the agent's budget, because they don't understand customer acquisition costs. I mean, if you have only $500 to invest in your business, then yeah, it's going to be hard to get up and running on the listing side of the business, because at the end of the day, it might cost you to get a good seller campaign in place. It might cost you $300, $400. I mean, the top agents in the country have already solved this riddle.
Right.
The top agent, the number one agent in your market, if you knew their customer acquisition cost per listing, you would certainly do it. Like for me, I did a back cover of a magazine, Frisco style magazine. I was on the back cover every single month with a very strong value proposition targeted at sellers. And that magazine ad would run me about $5,000 a month. There's times, Woods, that, I might generate 10, maybe 15, maybe 9 opportunities. But the thing is they all had homes to sell, and it was the verbiage. When they called me, they did not say, hey, Mike, I noticed that because they're, again, reading my value proposition. And my value proposition, I'll just say it was your home sold guaranteed in 59 days. I played with those days, started at, 89 days, got to 29 days, but your home sold guaranteed, insert time frame, guaranteed, or I'll buy it myself. And I actually went from I'll buy it myself to or we will buy it. And I had an investor network, which anybody can do this. I would even change that to, we're kind of creeping over into value proposition here, but I had a strong value proposition. So my phone would ring and people would say, hey, how does it work? And I would say exactly like it sounds. Without getting into the tactic on how I set the appointment, which was relatively easy, the point is that sometimes those leads would cost me $500, but I would set appointments with 9 out of 10 of them. And the truth is that if they actually listed their home, like meaning for me, a listing qualified opportunity is that if I generated an opportunity and they listed their home, even not with me, but their home was listed 90 days after I generated the lead on the market, then that was a qualified opportunity. I might not have had the chops. I might have given it to the wrong agent. I might have skipped steps in the conversion process. I might not, or you might not have the skills to articulate your value, demonstrate your value, make your value visible. And that's a whole nother problem. There's nothing more frustrating than getting really good at the marketing side, but can't win on the appointment. But when it comes to generating the opportunity, I would say that listing leads are inherently more expensive, but I wouldn't say more harder to generate. It's just that the biggest constraint to your seller funnel is going to be your budget. And so you have to get yourself into a situation where you're able to invest in your business. And that's really, from a mindset, you have to have the mindset is there's an unlimited budget when it comes to marketing. Mm-hmm. It's unlimited. If you would be willing to trade a nickel, dime, or a quarter for a dollar, and how many times would you do that? If you would do that as many times as someone would possibly sit down at the table and trade with you, then you would be a smart investor.
Right.
And if you start to looking at your business, is the number one place you can invest your money is in your business. Now, whether you fail to learn how to invest or whether you have the confidence to invest, whether you've had the failures and gotten to the victories to learn and have the t-shirt, that's your problem. Your problem is it's how you're thinking, right? Because if you show me a time in which you identified a target market, you created an extremely compelling value proposition, and you put that offer in front of homeowners. I mean, if you show me a time when you've done that and you've had crickets, then you either had the wrong target market or the wrong offer.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting too, because, it's interesting, man, the metrics that you look at really do determine your behavior. And so many people focus on the wrong metric. The whole idea with seller leads being more expensive, the lead is usually more expensive. So like I was thinking about but the customer acquisition cost and then ultimately the lifetime value of that customer, like you said, listings have babies. And so the lifetime value is usually a lot higher. We have an agent partner who's successfully running a campaign right now that's based on Google, and the search terms that campaign's running for is people that are actually searching for a realtor. They're searching for a real estate agent. So but the cost of that lead is astronomical. I mean, the lead alone can cost $80, $60, $80. But the reality is that their customer acquisition cost in terms of listings, and then over the period of 60 days, they generated 15 listings from that campaign with the average customer acquisition cost of $550 per listing, which is great, right? We do that all day long. But again, if you're used to generating buyer leads for $3 a piece, and now all of a sudden you go to pay $60 for a lead or $80 for a lead, that can be a tough pill to swallow. But the reality is like you can get started with seller leads. Going back to the definition of lead, what's a lead, right? You can go get names and phone numbers of homeowners in any neighborhood or with a high turnover rate or FSBOs or expireds or distress sellers. So, there's a million ways to do it, but when you get focused on kind of your target and what you want to aim for, that's where it really starts.
One of the things that I would tell you I've noticed, and I believe, again, it's identifying people's strengths, their weaknesses, their opportunities, and their threats, right? And when you look at somebody's business, let's just say they come to you and they say, "Hey, Woods, I'm dealing with buyers, tons of buyers, and I want to work with more listings." Well, let me tell you, you need an ask funnel. And if you don't ASK, you're not going to GET. And an ask funnel is basically a funnel that asks all your buyers if they have a home to sell, right? It's that simple. If you're generating buyer leads, then some of those buyers have to sell their home. I'm telling you, there was an agent, started working for me, an inside sales agent. He started on a day that I was out of town. When he came to work, he had no training on the seller side of the business. He had no training, but his employment agreement had only compensation for listings. So I was actually at a big conference. My assistant calls, says, "Hey, such and such started today." His name was, I can't believe I forgot his name. It'll come back to me. I can see Lars. His name was Lars. And Lars worked as a builder sales rep before he came to work to me. So he was really comfortable talking to buyers. I mean, he had buyers that came into his office all the time, left and right. And so he read through his compensation agreement, and I come back on a Friday thinking like, well, I'm going to have all weekend to do whatever I wanted. Lars hasn't really probably set any appointments. I'm going to get in the office, kind of get everything situated. I was booked solid. So I called Kathy and I said, "Kathy, where did all these listing appointments come from? Our mailer doesn't drop till next week. The magazine drops the week after. what happened? And she said, well, when Lars came in, he asked about his employment contract, and we put him on to the fish pond, which was a bunch of buyer leads that we had. And he just called through all the buyer leads and asked them if they had a home to sell. And I was like, brilliant. I mean, we actually got listings from our buyer leads. And so again, before you go try to engineer breakthroughs in your business, you want to maximize what you're already doing. If you don't have money to invest in the seller side of the business, then one thing you can do is optimize the buyer side so you have money to invest in the seller side.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things that you could be doing if you don't have host beneficiary relationships in place, people that are helping you invest in your marketing, specifically on your buyer side, freeing up your budget to put into the seller side, which is still going to help your partners, whether that's a lender, a home warranty company, an insurance company, a painter, all of those people that are going to benefit in a transaction. If you're not partnered with those individuals, then you're going to have an unfair advantage, and if you don't do some of the other things that I do on my listings that help me get an ROI, if I can afford to spend more to acquire the customer, then I'm going to be able to go do the magazine and a direct mail piece backed up by the following week. And over time, I'm going to build a brand quicker and faster than you. And you're going to really be limited to your budget and, more importantly, to your own thinking of what the problem really is, because every solution has a problem. If you don't have the money to invest in getting listings, but you have buyer leads, then you have listings. You just don't have the right strategy because it's not the problem. It was how you were thinking about it.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of things, like you said, you can do to optimize. Like, for example, we have a couple of niches on the buy side that we call Trojan horses, and they're a Trojan horse strategy to identify sellers, because 1 out of every 3 of those buyers that we generate through that buyer funnel is a local area mover that has a house to sell. So those become listing opportunities. I played that video for you yesterday of one of the agents that we just started working with last week, who through that same funnel generated that $700,000 buyer who also had the house to sell, and she was signing the listing agreement the next day after they went and showed them houses, right? So there's definitely but that's strategic, right? That's beginning with the end in mind, knowing that we want to acquire listings.
Well, the truth is that's investing in your business. And I think that 90% of the people listening to this podcast right now, not the 10%, but 90% of them are not investing in their business. They're literally, they pay for their car, they pay for their home, they pay for everything else. But when it comes to putting a dime into their business, they don't have that confidence. And I would tell you that the number one investment you can make is in yourself and in your business, yourself starts with personal development and your mindset. And that's why we started this. The listing agent mindset is the people that have all the listings have a different mindset. They think different than you. And you got to realize that, I see it all the time. And I'll tell you a short story, but I had a buddy that called me up and he wanted to take a private jet. This was the day before yesterday. And he said, hey man, do you want to take a private jet from Puerto Rico to Las Vegas? Well, to take a private jet from Puerto Rico to Las Vegas is about $85,000. I shared my opinion. I had done some research on taking a private jet. But for me personally, if I take a private jet from Puerto Rico to Las Vegas, I'm going to get a private jet with 12 passengers, and I'm going to get 12 of my friends that live in Puerto Rico that are going to the same event to partner with me on taking the jet. So I asked this individual, I said, just so that we can be on the same sheet of music, what were you looking to budget per seat? What were you willing to invest your portion for the ride? And this individual, I'll just call him out, Al Stasic, said, I'm willing to invest $25,000. I said, then me and you are on a different playing field. I ain't investing $25,000 for the convenience of riding. Now that's just not me. I'm the same guy who drove the same car. Now, I did have a budget and I knew what I was willing to invest. And I'm telling you, I just bought a brand new bike and I felt like my bike that's sitting right here next to me that I spent $5,000 on, I thought that was an overextension. There's a lot of things that I'll buy for $25,000, getting somewhere from point A to point B for right now. Now, if I lived in the United States and it was a deduction and there was other factors to take, it's math. It's just math and it's a mindset.
Right.
And so, but my point is there's owls in your market. There's people in your market based upon their current life situation, based upon the way that they were brought up, that maybe it's not 25 grand, but maybe they're like 5 grand, and they got you beat. They got you beat, period, right out the gate. They're like, I'll spend 5 grand. Now, his reasoning was, and I won't get into it, but he was basically saying that he said, what was he? I don't know what the math is. 20. He basically said, he said, I don't spend what you spend on a house, right? He said, you spend 10x on your house than I do, so I'm willing to make the $25,000 investment. Well, again, that is true, but everybody, I'm pointing this out for a reason, because when I was in real estate, I managed my expenses in a way so I could make that investment,
Right.
so that I could invest into my business. I didn't increase my expenses so that I had to go be a slave to buyers and open houses, working on the wrong things based upon my long-term goal. And I knew from the very get-go, because I was mimicking somebody else, I understood the game really quickly. After a guy jumped in my car at the Golden Corral with a pocket full of jelly beans and left them in the back of my truck when I took him to Ponder, Texas to look at a trailer, and those jelly beans rolled back and forth along where the jack was on that plastic underneath the bench seat in the back of my F-150. And every time I turned, the jelly beans would go. I was like, what the hell is that? And I was like, that guy stuffed jelly beans in my seat when I dropped them. Nor did he buy the house, but he wanted to look at it 2 times, right? I knew right then, if I did work with the buyer, how far it was going to be from my point of location, A, and B, that the seller, I went to a seller's house. Listen to this. I went to a seller's house, and they told me no. They told me they needed to think about it. And I promise you, this is not, anybody will never do this. I'm not coaching to this. I'm not advising this. I'm saying my mindset. I said, well, if y'all have something to think about, then why don't you just let me step outside? Y'all talk it over. No harm, no foul. I'll come back in if you have any final questions. That way I don't have to come back out here. I already have a sign in the car. We can get the paperwork done in the next 10 minutes and avoid you having to have another hour, 2-hour meetings if y'all just need to communicate back and forth. I'll never forget they said yes. And I'll never forget that home sold in like 6 days. And I'll never forget that I just asked.
Yeah.
I asked for the business. You know what I mean? And I said, listen, if you want to spend another hour, meeting with someone else, and then another hour thinking about it, and look up next week, then have them come back and do all the paperwork, we can be done in 15 minutes. If y'all have something to talk about, I totally respect it. And I'm very cool with y'all talking about it and then letting me know what it is, and I can leave, and I'm not going to pressure you into doing anything. But if there is something simple that y'all just need to be able to communicate about it, I don't want to have to set up a whole nother meeting when we can get this thing done today. So I stepped outside and got the listing. The point is that listings, Woods, they started looking like commission checks. Mm-hmm. When I walked into a front door, I walked into that front door thinking this is worth $10,000, because I wasn't needing that deal to close that day. I knew that it would close the next month. To me, I focused on what was in my control, right? What was in my control was, number one, conversations, right?
Yeah.
If I did not have enough conversations, and here's the biggest mistake that agents make, let me tell you, they judge marketing based upon the conversations. Well, let me just tell you, you better get ready to have a lot of bad conversations if you want to be a good listing agent. You better, because you're going to talk to a lot of people. And so if you want to know one sign if you're on the right track, here's the breadcrumb. The breadcrumb is that a lot of people told you no. There's a book called Go for No. And when you start tracking your no's and not your yeses, if you're not getting enough yeses, it's because you're not getting enough no's, and you're not getting enough no's because every time you get a no, it messes with you mentally. And if it messes with you mentally and the psychology or the narrative of this doesn't work, that's bullcrap. It's absolutely bullcrap. Stuff works, but it takes numbers. Now, there's things you can do, like putting in a contacting campaign like we did that helped sift and sort, or employing an ISA to help sift and sort. So you worked with more of the quality opportunities because you had so many of them in abundance. It didn't make sense for you to make those calls anymore, right? There's things that you can definitely do, which I would do.
Right.
But that doesn't neglect the fact that if you don't have the resources to do that's not happening with the top agents. And so you have one or two things you can invest. You can invest your time or you can invest your money. If you invest your money, you're going to get less no's, right?
Right.
If you invest your money, if you have a strong value proposition, then that's what's going to happen. And so you have to be that's the game plan. That's what you have to be willing to do. You have to have the target market, which is going to be understanding your ideal customer, knowing where that audience is. Is it a neighborhood? Is it people who are defaulted? Is it probates, right? You have to have that niche. Is it new construction, waterfront, whatever it is? Then you have to get a very specific value proposition with a strong offer, right? Is it a guarantee? Is there risk reversal? Do you have testimonials that validate the promise you're making? And you have to have a strong hook. You have to be able to get their attention. If they look at all the other marketing pieces that are going to be in front of them, what is going to make them stop on yours?
Yeah.
And as you do that, then you have to be able to go out and promote that offer to many, many different places. You need to start with the tip of spear. If you haven't watched the tip of spear episode, there's probably a link up here somewhere where to link you to it. You got to have a tip of spear so that you can dial in that marketing message, dial in that top of funnel, dial in that offer so you can generate that traffic by having a compelling ad, right? That's going to serve as a conversion mechanism of getting people into your sales process. And then know your assumptions. Don't assume everybody's going to buy.
Yeah.
Don't assume everybody's going to sell. But you should know what will give you confidence is knowing for every 100 people I talk to, which is if you ever talk to 100 and actually tracked it, you would be pretty excited about real estate because you would know that, dang, I don't have to talk to that many people to actually make this income. And the reason you're not making this income is you're just not talking to that many people. So you got to have a sales process with assumptions around conversation rates. And finally, you got to realize that timing is motivation. If they're not ready, you have to have a working hot, a nurture, and a long-term nurture. And know, like I did, for 1 in every 34 people that I put into my nurture, they're going to come out and be a client within 12 months. So if I get 6 people in that bucket that day, and I do that every day of the week, 5 days, 6 days, depending on your work week, I'm not only generating the now business, I'm now putting people that are going to come out in that are going to come out in January, that are going to come out in February, that are going to come out in March. You cannot have sales process ADD. You cannot have sales process ADD where you're like, well, they didn't want to buy today. They don't want to put their home on the market today. So that's a bad lead. If that's you, you're going to have a very long journey.
And you're never going to cross over to the sales side. I mean, that's
never. You have to have the strategy of preeminence. The strategy of preeminence. We learned it from Jay Abraham. You have to be taking these people in your care. These are homeowners that gave you their name and number. You have to have a script that allows you to identify if they're not looking to do something today, to make them an offer that's compelling, that's of value to them. WIFM, what's in it for me? Due to the current conditions of the market, home prices are on the rise. When we seen this last time, they fell quickly too. We put out a monthly market update with our market watch news, whatever you call it. Would you like to be notified when homes go on the market and also sell and go pending in your neighborhood? It's a good way to keep your finger on the pulse of how, what's going on with your house. I mean, literally, you need an offer for those people. If they say yes, that is the goal. That's the goal. That's why we wrote Digital President, is we witnessed it. We saw, all of these people that want to do something in January, but 161 people that were going to do something between February and June. But most people's marketing and sales process, it doesn't have any type of focus. So you have to have those components.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that I really love about that too is it gives you that predictability and that confidence. Your goal is not to get the listing. Like I used to have to train people all the time. It's like, bro, we're not trying to list a home over the phone. Our goal is to get an appointment. If we don't get an appointment, our goal is to get a nurture. If our goal is not to get a nurture, our goal is to get somebody into the database, get them on the market update. We know, like you said, 1 out of 34 conversations is going to lead to an appointment. 1 out of 8 of our nurtures is going to convert to a listing over time. And so, it just requires you to play that long game and have those assumptions. But once you have that system, man, there's nothing like it, because now all you're doing is just dropping traffic into the top and keep performing those functions to keep the funnel rolling.
Heck yeah, man. So here's the thing. If you want to create an ultimate seller funnel, if you want to get more listings, you got to first of all ask yourself, do you have the right mindset? If you do, identify your target market. Make sure you get a strong value proposition. If you If you don't have a strong value proposition, or you want to see some of the strongest value propositions working in today, go to listingclass.com. We literally walk you through what's working right now. The best things that we're seeing, we update that usually quarterly, sometimes biannually. Go look what's working right now. Just copy what other people are doing that works. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel, but make sure you have a marketing process. Make sure you have a sales process. And the great thing about listingclass.com is we not only show you the marketing process, we show you the traffic, we show you the ads, we show you the conversion mechanism, everything you need. So if you haven't checked out Listing Class, go check it out. Hopefully, you're thinking about how you're going to create your ultimate seller funnel. You're thinking about your target market, and hopefully you're going to actually take action, because ideas don't make money without massive action behind them. So go take massive action so you can actually have leveraged income, have more freedom, because the best life to live
It's a life by strategy.